Do I click got it or lead meeting? Don't lead.
Got it.
All right, so I'll start with lead generation. That's the first thing that I want to go into. There's a quote that I wanted to share that really kind of breaks down what my mindset is surrounding lead generation. If you're not moving closer to what you want in sales or in life, you're probably not doing enough asking. Lead generation is all about contacts and talking to as many people as you can, right? The majority of people, in my experience, underestimate how much effort, how many people you have to speak with to reach your intended goal. So the steps I would say, first of all, if you're going to establish lead generation and you want to start from scratch, first thing I would establish a primary lead source. It's the first thing you got to do, and you got to commit to that lead source for a minimum of 6 months. The biggest mistake that I see when people get into lead generation is there's so many different opportunities out there. There's so many ads you're getting. There's so many different ways to generate leads. People will try something, and then they'll dabble over to social media. They'll dabble over to open houses. They'll go door knocking. Then they'll do mailers. Then they'll do farming, and they'll do all this over the span of 1 to 2 months. And none of this stuff is going to work unless you focus on one primary source and commit to doing it at a high level. So the first thing, and my first piece of advice is, whenever you're going into lead generation, almost everything works. But it doesn't work if you don't know how to do it at a high level and you don't commit to it. Can someone give me some examples of lead sources, just out of curiosity? Zillow, okay. What else? Inspired. What else? Facebook ads, okay. Out of curiosity, so let's use Facebook ads as an example. How long do you think the average time line it takes to close a Facebook lead is? 6 to 12 months, right? So that specific lead source, if you don't commit to doing that for a minimum of 6 months, there's no way you would ever know if it was going to work or not, because you're focused on long-term clients. So at least commit to a minimum of 6 months. The third thing that you would want to do with any lead source is you have to set up a daily habit to work it. A daily habit to work it. Now, what does this mean? Well, if you're doing phone calls, like let's say you want to call expired for sale by owners, that pinpoint should be focused on your conversations. That's strictly around context. How many people would you be speaking to? If you're doing social media, how many posts are you doing on a daily basis? How much are you engaging your social media followers? What are you doing to get new people to join your audience? But the first thing you got to do is you got to establish a habit to work that primary lead source on a daily basis. And the reason this is important is that I value consistency in lead generation over everything else. I would rather have someone that works with our team or just anyone in general that's willing to make 5 to 10 conversations a day that does 75 conversations on a Monday. Consistency is key whenever you're trying to work a new lead generation source. You want to have a daily routine. When I was calling expireds and I was doing about 6 million a year off of expireds, my mindset was I want to speak to at least 20 expireds per day. And every day I would come in, I would be here at 8 a.m. and I would call those and commit to having at least 20 conversations. Because some days you might call 20, 30, 40 people and you might not get anything. And that might even happen for a week. But if you commit to calling on a daily basis on that lead source, you will start to see results as long as it's habitual. The next thing is, when you're trying to get that lead source, you want to always make sure you're creating scripts and you're creating objection handlers. How many people here use scripts? Everyone? Half? No? There's a little bit of a stigma surrounding scripts, right? Sometimes when I'm meeting with agents and they're going to start calling, they're going to start marketing, they're going to try and work outside of their sphere, I get a lot of, I don't want to call up a script. I don't want to sound like a robot. I don't want to ask uncomfortable questions. Those are the most common things I hear whenever we're talking about starting to get into lead generation. A script should be a skeleton to follow. It shouldn't be something you follow through word by word that sounds unnatural. The purpose of a script is to have a dialogue and to know exactly the points you want to get across through that phone call, right? So if you're calling expired, you want to make sure you know how to get in there, establish rapport, how to ask the right questions, and how to close and make sure the conversation is on track. Next thing is, every single time you're working a lead source, make sure you're also writing down every single time that you get an objection. This is key every time you get a lead source. So if you start working Zillow leads, you start working Realtors.com leads, you start working KW Command leads, if you're trying to get these people to set an appointment with you, or they're not wanting to work with you, or they're going to be giving you an objection, the best thing that you can do that will transform your approach is write down every single time you weren't able to handle the situation properly. If you're on the phone and someone hits you with, well, I'm just not quite ready to make a move yet, and you stutter and you don't have a good response to that, take a sheet of paper, write it down, and then my advice would be is actually go to some of the agents in the office or go to the PC program. I did this my whole career, and I would go to the top agents in my office and I would say, hey, I had someone tell me this on the phone. Have you ever ran into this, and how would you handle it? I would find out the proper responses to those objections, and then I would practice them. That's the best thing you can do is find out, don't just let people tell you no and then just keep calling. You're never going to get anywhere like that. If you just try to wait for people who say, I'm ready to go, let's go buy a house, you're never going to be able to convert at a high enough level for it to make enough sense for you. So make sure you're always writing down your objections and you're handling them. And the last thing is going to be to track your results. Now I have some steps kind of breaking down everything in here that I'm going to go into, and I'll go into tracking results later on. But a good rule of thumb is if you're not tracking the conversations, the appointments you guys are going on, you're never going to know what you need to focus on and improve. Does anyone have any questions on this so far? No? Okay. All right. So establishing a lead source, this has always helped me a lot, finding out how I wanted to build my business. So there's a difference between prospecting and there's a difference between marketing. Now I know there's definitions on here, but just around the room, can anyone tell me their definition of prospecting versus marketing? What you guys think the difference is in your own words? Does anyone know?
Prospecting is when you go out of your way to call someone and get their business. Marketing is what they talk about.
Exactly. So just so everyone knows, if you're going to be building a sales pipeline, you need to figure out if you're going to be doing outbound marketing or if you're going to be doing inbound marketing or both. Outbound is the act of reaching out to contacts from a list in search of prospective customers. What are some examples of this? And this is pulled from MREA, by the way. Great book. I'm sure everyone has read it. For sale by owners, expires, just listed, just sold, past clients, farming, contacting builders, contacting banks, third-party companies, open houses, door knocking, client parties, networking events, seminars, booths. Anything where someone is not coming to you, expressing interest in your product, and you're actively seeking them and trying to convince them to use you is what we consider prospecting. Marketing is anyone who's expressed potential interest in your company's product through paid advertising, right? So the difference is this would be like I go on a platform like Realtor.com and I say the way that I want to build my business is I'm going to give Realtor.com a certain amount of money. And in return, they're going to send me leads that are expressing interest. And I'm going to start working those as my primary lead source. So you're not actually going out and finding the customer. The customer is coming to you, and all your job is to qualify and convert them. Prospecting requires you to actually find a list of potential prospects and go out and convert them. And a lot of people have different approaches. Some people don't want to go out and cold call, expired listings or for sale by owners, and that's okay. They would much rather spend a little bit of money and have people coming to them, right? Now, best lead sources I've seen for marketing, just based on my personal experience, Facebook is fantastic as a lead source if you guys are trying to build a sales pipeline. The best thing you can do, in my opinion, right now is if you are trying to watch how much you're spending, is go to KW Command, and I use this in my own business. Go to KW Command, go to campaigns. When you go to campaigns, go to create campaign and do a just sold or just listed campaign. Find out listings that are actually listed through KW Metro. So any listing that is through the office, make sure you get consent to post it. Post the ad on Facebook, advertising that listing. So it would look something like this. Just listed in Royal Oak, 3-bedroom, 3-car garage, new hardwood floors. Click here for more information. Do that advertisement through Command. You spend $300, you get about, I would say on average, 200 to 250 leads. And those leads converted at an average of 1.5%. But so what? You're spending $300, you got at least 200 people coming in there and you're able to build prospects. I think that's the cheapest, easiest way and easiest calls to make is through KW Command. So you can spend $300 to $500 and build a very, very stable, steady pipeline getting started. That's the first thing I would do. Advanced things you can do are like Realtor.com, Boomtown, excuse my French, Zillow, things like that. Excuse my French, you don't have to do that. I didn't say that. So prospecting wise, everyone, I don't think I met everyone here, but my reputation was I went in the business when I was 18 years old. I had no sphere whatsoever. Nobody wanted to work with me. I didn't know what to do. And the only way that I knew how to make money was in 2016 was to call expireds or for sale by owners. And I did that for about 4 to 5 years. And that was how I built my individual business to about an $8 million a year sales business. My primary lead source was expired listings. I believe expireds are the #1 prospecting source. Second would probably go for sale by owners. Another one that people overlook is for rent by owners. Not a lot of people look at for rent by owners. Huge opportunity there. Depends on the time of the year a little bit with these, but for rent by owners are basically investors who are offering their vacant home for lease. And my approach would be to call the investor and say, hey, I saw you have a vacancy at your listing. I was curious if you had a recent comparable market analysis. Do you know what the home's worth in today's market? And because there's been so much appreciation in the market, a lot of investors have so much equity that it makes sense for them to sell right now. It's another great source to keep in mind. Just listed or just sold. I personally have worked this a little bit, but I can tell you from experience, even agents in the office, I know Danny Diedick over there, he uses this at a very, very high level. Joe Hamill is another agent in my old office. There's a lot of people I know that have built huge businesses off calling around their office listings, around their own listings, and informing neighbors that there's a sale. Now, there's an old saying in the sales prospecting world, if one home goes up, 2 more are going to list, right? So the idea is if a listing goes up in a neighborhood, you want to be the person that informs the neighbors and captures the other 2 listings that go up once they sell. Huge opportunity there. And then what would I say here? Builders and banks are much more difficult, but if you can list a good builder, you can get a good bank, another great opportunity. Does anyone have any questions on this? No? Okay, perfect. Now, like I said, if you're going to be working a lead source like an expired, or you're going to be getting a Realtor.com lead or anything of that sort, you want to make sure you're creating the script. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's a little bit kind of off the course I was going on, but I wanted to share this at least so you guys have an idea. If you guys are going to go ahead and start calling people, this is the approach that my team uses, and this might help if you don't have a base. And I'm happy if anyone wants to see me after the class, I'm happy to share all my scripts with you. So if you guys want an idea of what we're doing, I'm sure Ignite and Chandra have preferred scripts. So if you guys have those, I would defer to those. But if anyone has any questions on what we're doing, these are our scripts. And just keep in mind, whenever you're doing a phone call with any lead source, you want to focus on 4 things. 4 things you want to focus on. You should have a good opening on every single call, no matter what. An opening is basically your greeting. This is essentially just when you're calling, don't go in, hi, how are you? Is this? Find out what you're going to say. Go straight to the point. The first 5 seconds of the call are where you make that initial impression. It's very important. So come out strong, have a very, very strong opening. Our opening on a call was basically, hi, is this Susan? Hi, Susan, this is Nick with the Zeoli Group. I noticed you were looking at a property on 123 Main Street. I'm Realtor.com. Previously, are you still looking to make a move? Very easy, very direct, very straight to the point. I'm not spending too much time with fluff. I want to help you from the beginning. Have a section where you're fact finding, find out what they're looking for, find out how long they've been looking to sell, how long they've been looking to buy. Have they been working with an agent? Get as much information as you can. Once you do enough fact finding, I want you to make sure you qualify the lead. Make sure they're ready to make a decision right now. Make sure they're qualified for whatever they're doing. If they're qualified to sell the house, if they're the decision maker, everything of that sort. And then always make sure you close. I had a conversation with our team, and this is something that we're spending a ton of time on, is make sure when you guys are on the phone, you're closing for an appointment. You're closing for something. I see so many people that will generate these great leads, and they won't have a script. And then they go through this lead and they don't know what to say. At the end of the call, it's just, okay, great, I'll talk to you later. They did all this work, but they didn't spend the time to actually break down what they're going to say, how they're going to say it, and how they're going to get them to the next step. Make sure you guys know what the intent of the call is, break down what that call is supposed to look like, and have a close. A close could be for a buyer consultation. A close could be for a listing appointment. A close could be for a showing. But make sure at the end of the call, we're not just wasting our time. Make sure we're actually closing that particular lead into a situation that we want them to get into, right? So again, 4 areas of the call you want to focus on: have a strong opening, fact finding, qualify the client, and then close. Does anyone have any questions on this, on the scripts? No? Okay. Now, when it comes to lead follow-up, which is really where I'm going to bring this home and go into the sales pipeline, I love some of these quotes. I just wanted to share them with you guys real quick. Getting the lead source established and then getting the leads generated is somewhat the easy part. Once you get over that, what agents and team leaders and all these big teams do, and their focus is actually on what happens after the lead comes in. That lead follow-up, the systems that you have, how do you engage these leads, and how do you make sure if you're going to generate 300 to 400 to 500 leads, you're going to be able to convert them at a high level. This is what people spend the majority of the time on. So 48% of salespeople never even make a single follow-up attempt. So let's say we did all that work I just showed you guys. We went on Facebook, we got 200 leads, we called all 200 that came in, and we just said, okay, that didn't work. You throw on the top. I see that all the time. Getting the lead to come into your database is the easy part. You just got through step 1. You barely got through step 1. The fun part is after they come into your system, and that's where you really start to get good. You guys start to get lots of clients. 60% of customers say no 4 times before saying yes. Over half the people that come in will say no at least 4 times, and 80% of people will say it makes 5 follow-up calls to even make a sale happen. A sale could even be in our industry, even to get an appointment. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 times is really the sweet spot of what you need. 4 to 5 times to even get in touch with somebody or even to get that appointment. So when you're calling through, you got all these leads, you called them maybe 1 or 2 times, remember that. Keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, it probably takes at least 5 phone calls for these leads to get converted. And this is why I'm going to go into lead tracking later, because what you're going to do is you're going to actually track your numbers through a system, and you're going to find out how many calls on average is it taking me to get an appointment, and then you're always going to do that minimum amount of calls. So find out what that is. Good rule of thumb is 4 to 5 calls on average is what it's going to take. And then 44% of salespeople give up after at least 1 phone call. So you do 1 follow-up call, they say no, 44% give up, right? It takes a lot more effort than you guys realize to actually get somebody converted. And all of this intertwines: the lead follow-up, the lead generation, the scripts, the objection handling, the tracking that you use, everything with it is required. If you don't have it all in place, it's going to be hard for you to do one thing without the other. So systems you need if you're going to build a sales pipeline are the following. You need a CRM, client relationship management software. It's the first thing anyone's going to need. If you're on a team, I'm sure this is provided you by your team leader. If you guys don't, so I'm going to be completely honest. When I think Command has been out for how long now? Anyone know? How long has Command been out? When was it released?
About 3 years.
3 years. I gave Command a shot 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, and I tried it. I hated it. I didn't like it. But over the past year, they've made so many updates to that system, including the smart plans, the campaigns, and all the software updates. I would say it's a very strong CRM system that you should use. It's completely different from how it was when it was initially released. So if you guys don't want to spend any money, just go straight into Command and use it as a high level. You don't need to go in here and spend $300,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 on a CRM if you're starting out. The only time you need to really do that is if you're building a team or if you're doing at least 8-10 million in sales. So first thing I would do is I get a CRM. KW Fan's a great option. There's other ones out there too. This is controversial, and I know it's controversial. Dialer, I believe is necessary. I believe it's necessary. Because if you're going to generate hundreds of leads, it's going to be impossible for you to get through them all manually dialing them. That doesn't mean you're spamming people through a triple line dialer, 10 line dialer, but you should have a system where you can click on these leads that you want to call, and then it's calling through your cell phone and without you having to input them every time. It's a lot easier to get through your day once you have this really large sales pipeline where it's just calling for you and all you have to focus on is what's in front of you. It will burn you out. If I said everyone here make 100 phone calls like this, you're going to burn out to about 15. But if you have a system that's going to do that for you and it's going to dial them for you, not spamming people, you're going single line, that's going to make it so it's a lot easier for you to call at a really, really high volume. Yes, sir.
Is that with command, in your experience, you use your dialer with command? Does command have a dialer? I've never seen that. Or how do you incorporate the leads to a dialer as a separate system?
I'm going to answer that question, but first, Chandra, do you know if command has an in-house dialer or no?
Do we have an in-house dialer? Is that the question?
Through command. I know how to
Yeah.
answer this question, but I didn't know if command was releasing their own dialer.
No, we don't have an in-house dialer. No, you would have to get your own personal dialer. Yes.
So has anyone heard of Mojo, Vulcan? You can download a service called Mojo. It's also where you guys can find expireds for sale by owners, all these lead sources. And you can use a system called Zapier. So Zapeier. You can use PySync or RealSync, whatever one is compatible. And all you got to do is basically put command in Mojo. And every time you get a Facebook lead, it'll put it in a folder in Mojo. And then you can dial through Mojo and it'll be automatic. And then both will talk to each other.
Does a dialer such as Mojo then have a follow-up schedule around it? These are questions, not statements. I don't use one.
Yeah,
I'm not challenging you on.
No, I want the question.
Does something such as Mojo have a schedule on it to alert you that it's time to call that person
Yes.
back?
Yes.
Now that though there is no relationship with that in command. So then do I have to manually put that information back over to
No.
command?
Because when you pay for Zapier or RealSync, they're talking to each other.
So they are, so we'll.
If you put a note in
Sync.
one, it will sync to the other. And that's the most inexpensive way to do it. Just paying for the Mojo and the dialer. I believe that would be about 150 bucks, maybe 200 tops, and then command's free. So you're able to get all these systems. That's the most inexpensive way to do it starting out. You don't have much risk doing it that way.
All right, so can I just clarify that? I'm all with technology. So if you're using the dialer, the information, the contact information will sync into command.
Yes.
Okay, and then with the Facebook ads too, that we're talking about, you can run through command. Any leads you generate from those Facebook ads will also go into your contacts in command.
Exactly. The cool thing is, so KW Command is the CRM, but the campaign is through the system itself. So when you go to KW Command, you're going to see a section for contacts. So it's like the second tab down, and then you go like 3 more tabs down and it'll have campaigns. So the nice thing is you're not actually going into Facebook. You're creating the physical campaign through command, and then that puts it in the system. So it makes it super easy, because when I first was doing Facebook leads, I had to go to Facebook, go to Lead Manager. They had these intricate steps. They told me I was committing fraud for putting, I couldn't understand anything that they were saying because they have all these rules and regulations. Command just has it laid out for you. So all you do is click a couple buttons and you're good to go. Third thing, website. This is 100% necessary. Every single person should have a website. And I don't know if you guys know, also through Keller Williams, you've got a website and you can actually use it. So a lot of these tools are actually in place and provided by the office, and some people don't even know they're there. So you have in command, you have an agent website. Now, the reason you need a website is you have to have somewhere to send these leads to. Most leads you're going to buy, if you're going to do any marketing, they're going to be buyers. The majority are not going to be people inquiring to sell. The majority will be people looking to buy. And what you want to do is you want to have a website where you can put these people on. So you're going to be able to put them on an auto email search, and they're going to be looking through your site. So you're going to be able to see what they're looking at. You want your website and your CRM to talk to each other. I don't want people that are inquiring with me to be going on Zillow to look at homes. They should not be going on Realtor.com, right? We have 2,000 contacts, and out of those 2,000 contacts, almost all of them are on our site getting hit with auto email searches every time something comes up that are relevant to them. And then the majority of our follow-up calls based on talking to that website and looking at what they're interested in. So, I mean, you've been on the team. I mean, how much has it helped having a website that is talked for your clients versus when we didn't?
It's very helpful. You can identify exactly what they're looking at and have a conversation with them.
Yeah, I mean, we can see the house that they're interested in. Most people will request showings through our site, and most people will indicate high interest. So when we're going through our morning schedule, we can be like, all right, so this person requested a showing, this person's interested in this property, and we're having high intelligent conversations. Everyone should have a website that these leads are automatically going to that are getting fed information. Now, this is a little more technical. If anyone wants to set this up, I'm happy to spend time with you guys after the class. I don't want to do it too much because it's going to be a little too much information. But essentially, you can generate a lead, have it go into command, create a smart plan. The smart plan will then plug into the website that will automatically create all that for you. And then last thing, I believe is necessary. Now, I was a spreadsheet king. I don't mean to toot my own horn. I was the king of spreadsheets back in the day. So I can attest to that. I had spreadsheets like you've never seen. So I started from nothing on there, but you need to have sales tracking software. This is an absolute must, without a doubt, in my opinion. Without a doubt. I could not imagine my business at all if I did not have something where I was tracking my actual numbers and results. What's the point of doing everything if you don't know what's happening? So systems like CSU or CT, I think I have it on a site so I can show you guys an example. Okay, I'll show it later on so you guys can see, but CSU or CTE is basically a service where you're gonna be able to track how many appointments you're setting, how many conversations you're doing, and every thing that's going out through leads. And I have a separate slide, so I'm gonna go into that here in a minute. But you need to have sales tracking software. Next thing you need to do is, if you're gonna create a sales pipeline, you need to make sure that you're gonna have lead stages. Now, there's different stages that people use for their teams. I wanted to use ours just so you guys get an idea of what we're doing. But defer to your PC coach if anyone has Ignite scripts or Command or whatever your team's doing. So everyone requires different follow-up. So if I call an expired, that expired indicated to me that, hey, I want to sell my house, but I can't do anything until June. They're going to have a completely different follow-up from someone that says, I'm ready to set an appointment Monday when I get back in town. There's going to be a completely different follow-up schedule based on each lead. So when you have a CRM, the lead, these are just basic ones, and you can have much more. We have more, but these are just basics. You should have new, which is no contact made. Now, just out of curiosity, how fast do you think people make decisions when they're inquiring online? Meaning, when someone inquires on Realtor.com or Zillow or Facebook or any of these sites, how fast should they be contacted?
Immediately.
Immediately. Very important that you have a section called new, so you guys can see how many people have not been contacted. If you see that new section at 12 and then you come in the morning and it's still 12, you should have red lights going off your head. Like, oh my God, I could be losing these leads. Attempted contacts simply did not answer. Now, with attempted contacts, I believe that's very aggressive. There should be 12 attempts made, minimum. We should do at least 12 attempts to hit these leads. Now, just so everyone understands though, that doesn't mean you're calling them every single time. Okay? That doesn't mean I'm calling people every single day. Just ring, text, email, call, mailers. We're doing touches. We're doing at least 12 attempts to get in touch with them. And we're doing it at least every 48 hours. It's very aggressive, I know. But this is what it requires if you're going to generate a lot of leads at a high level. You start to realize how much effort it takes to get in touch with people. And there's typically more than one agent calling after your leads. So it's your job to get it. Hot would be a 30-day or less time frame. So anyone that's in my hot session means that they're looking to buy or sell in less than 30 days. That's how I identify someone that's gonna. I thought you raised your hand. That's how I'm gonna identify anybody that I want to spend the majority of my time on. They should be reviewed daily. And this is why I say it's important to have a website so you can view the activity that they're doing on a daily basis. You can view what's going on with the lead. And you want to make sure you're staying on top of your leads on a daily basis. Even if it's just a quick glance, make sure you know what's going on in your pipeline. Make sure you know who's in there, be familiar with them, and actually focus on building a relationship with them. What's in front of you stays in front of you when you close. And they should be called a minimum of every 7 days. So anyone that's indicated that they want to do something in 30 days, yes. Anyone that's indicated they're going to do something in less than 30 days should be contacted every week. Now, sometimes you guys will hear us like, oh, I'm not going to do anything for another 3 weeks. Has anyone ever had an experience where they had a lead, they told them they were going to wait a month, and then you checked after the month and their house was already listed or they already bought something? Has that happened to anyone? Everyone?
Yes,
Happens to everyone.
happened to me and it hurts.
Does hurt. Every 7 days. How does that follow-up call look like? Hey, John, it's Nick. I know last time we spoke, you said you were still waiting to, get the dogs over to your stepmom's house and you're waiting for this to happen. I always wanted to check in, see how things are going, see if you're still ready to get the house on the market and get it sold. No, you're still waiting to come back into town from Miami. Okay, perfect. I'll leave you back. Keep on the process. And just stay top of sight, top of mind. A lot of these people forget who you are after you get off the phone unless you do enough touches. What's your question?
You mentioned a couple times about monitoring the website for what people are searching for. So you're not doing MLS searches or anything, you're sending people listings or staying in touch monitoring the website.
Correct. And the website's through the CRM. So essentially what's happening is the website is feeding into here. So when you go on those contacts and like you look up John Smith, it'll show before you call him, John Smith requested a showing on 123 Main Street. And John Smith favorited these 3 properties. And then what's good about it is you can call and be like, hey, I saw you requested a showing and you said you were interested in these 3 homes. Let's go and schedule a tour.
And that's available through Command and the website.
You have to set it
I just
up.
gotta learn Command better. I didn't know that was an option. So thank you.
And the app too.
Okay.
If they're using the app and they're tied to you and have an account with Command, it'll all tie it together.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
In your opinion, would it be best to create a website off Command so you have your own? In our world, you may be in a different place in 3 years. Would it be not more advantageous to have a independent website outside Command?
I don't care where it comes from, but it has to communicate to your CRM or it's not going to do
Okay,
any
so
good.
that's the most important,
Most important.
no matter what. Okay.
Because it defeats the purpose because if people are on your website, but you don't know what they're doing, there's no reason for it. I understand what you're saying is that I don't know where our industry is going to be and they're going to have the rights to my system. So at any point I could put all this web energy into SEO and it might just not be there. But on that same note, you need to make sure that it's connected to a system intertwined with a website so you're getting the value from it. The value is in the domain more than it is the actual site
So
itself.
just curiosity.
Yeah, 100%. And then nurtures. Now this has changed for me a lot, and I'll give you my philosophy behind nurtures and why it's gone all over the place. I used to have a step in between here where I did like watch, which was 1 to every 3 months, but I changed it. Nurtures are 1 to 12 month leads, and they're reviewed weekly and called monthly. The reason I have called monthly is a lot of people, if you have too many stages, in my opinion, you start to kind of forget the nurtures. Nurtures are usually the last thing on people's mind. They don't want to deal with them. If you have anyone who's looking after 30 days of your nurtures, you're going to have a lot more quality leads and it's going to make you more advantageous to go through the list. And if they're in the same list, you're more likely to go through each lead source. So anyone that's in there should be called monthly if they're indicating they're going to do something in a year or less. And the purpose behind it is just to build rapport with these people, right? Be there when the time's right. Make sure that whenever they do call, they've heard from you so much that you're the only person that they end up reaching out to. And then this is the last thing that I want to get into. This is an example of CSU and lead tracking. This is basically where I live as a team leader. I live here. I look at this every day. You can see I'm OCD about it. This is how I know what my business is, what it looks like. So this is called CSU. A few things we do on a monthly basis. Here's how our team meeting would look. How many conversations have we had? How many appointments did we go on? How many did we set? How many did we go on? How many agreed to sign with us, to work with us exclusively? How many were under contract? How many closed? Right? This is what we call sales management software. The reason it's so important is if you're ever trying to think of how you can improve and you don't know why you're not improving, you can't figure out how to really just get over that hurdle that you're dealing with. If you don't know what's causing it, it's impossible to keep pushing forward. So what this will do is, let's say, for example, I'm having trouble getting my Mets signs to convert. I have good conversations, I'm getting good appointments, but I can't get people to sign with me. What should I work on as an agent? Where should my focus be? Right, that's true. But focus would be on scripts and role play, right? So I have a problem in my skill set. Because a lot of people's response to that normally would be, if they didn't know, is I'm just gonna make more phone calls and pay more and spend more money on leads. That's not the right response. You're spending money where it doesn't need to be spent. The right thing to do is, okay, I'm actually generating enough leads to hit my goals, but I'm not signing enough. So let me go and focus and make sure that on the people that I am meeting with, I'm having good quality conversations. I know the objections. I know how to convert them. If I'm not setting enough appointments, I have a conversation issue. I'm not talking to enough people, right? Now, this is something I could spend hours on, but I just want to give you guys an example of why I think it's so important that you guys are tracking your numbers and tracking everything. You can do this through a spreadsheet. You can do this through CTE, which is also something that was reached out to Keller Williams, I believe. You can do something through CSU, which this is, but it's really, really important that you're tracking what you're doing through your lead sources and what's working, what's not. Another thing is always make sure you're tracking your profit. P&L is important. How much you're spending on a lead source is important. What's your cost for closing? These are all things that we're tracking. How many leads did we generate that quarter? We've got 125 leads that quarter. We have one pending at the end of the quarter, 8 closed, 1.185 million. We saw our cost per lead was about $35.61. Our cost per closing was $556.34, and our conversion rate was 6.4%. And that was based on a specific lead source.
Nick,
Right? Yep.
sorry, I just wanted to jump in one real quick second. Just so everybody knows too, I know that Command is not as sophisticated as this. However, you can do it at a little bit lower level. You can track your leads on a month-to-date basis and on a annual basis. You can then track your appointments. You don't necessarily track them by appointments set or appointments met, but you just track the actual appointment, and then under contracts and obviously closed units. So not in the same fashion, you can still track it using the Command as well. So just wanted to tag in.
That's perfect. So a lot of these resources are basically for free, and they're all at your guys' disposal. So everything we're showing here is something that all you guys have access to. All you guys do is make sure this is implemented. The most important thing is to make sure you got all these pieces of the puzzle together. The biggest problem I see with agents starting out is that either they just don't quite frankly start, and once you get past starting, they don't know how to put it all together. So when you're building a sales pipeline, just to recap, focus on lead generation, focus on committing to one lead source for at least 6 months, set up scripts and objections and a daily habit around it. Have a system to follow up with those leads. So have a good website, have a good process for taking those leads through the next steps, and then track the results you're getting. Some lead sources may not work that well. If you don't track what your ROI is, you don't track what you're getting, it might make sense for you to move away from it after 6 months. So if you don't track any of your results, you're not tracking what you're doing, you don't know what you need to improve on, you'll never be able to progress. All right, well, that's all I had, guys. Does anyone have any questions?
What was the book you mentioned before? It had the chart, the difference between marketing and prospecting.
The book?
Yeah.
Oh, Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, huge book. Couple sales books, just if I want to throw them out there, that helped me a lot. Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Bly is a fantastic book. I recommend that every new agent should read it. Fanatical Prospect. It's a really, really, really solid book. Obviously, Millionaire Real Estate Agent is a given. One Thing is a given. Shout out to Gary Keller. Those are great books that help me a lot. Most important thing is to understand that I think a lot of people deny is in real estate, you guys are salesmen. Just remember that we are salesmen at the end of the day. We work in sales. So you need to make sure we're developing sales skills and you're acknowledging that you're not just a paper pusher, right? Any other questions? Anything I can help with?
So what do you think your cost per month of all the different technology?
It's up there, but I mean, I run a team of about 5 agents. So I'd say if I was a new agent or I was an agent with maybe an assistant, follow the budget model, through MREA, make sure your profit is at 40% always. Play red light, green light with your expenses. I'd say if I'm talking about the cost of my systems personally without the lead generation, CSU for me probably costs $300, $400 a quarter. It's not that expensive. And then my CRM's pretty expensive. But really those are the two main systems. I use Chime personally. Yeah, that's who Stransky uses. It's what I use. Yeah. So that's what we use as a CRM.
But, man, getting better.
I don't think you need anything like that unless you're doing it. I mean, really, the majority of the resources are already there. None of this stuff was here when I was around. This is all new. So you got a website.
It's only almost 2 years old.
Yeah. So even you got a website through there, you got a CRM, you got a lead generation source. You got everything you need. It's free. There's no reason not to get started. The biggest problem for me was I didn't have any money when I started, so I didn't want to spend any money. But to you guys, it's free, nearly. So it makes no sense not to get started.
You can email through it, you can text through it. Now with the mobile app, I started using the mobile app, to call people and take notes about the call.
Kelly? Yeah.
Oh,
KW app.
I think there's a command class tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
There's one.
Not sure.
We have somebody new.
I don't know.
I hated command until I started really getting into it.
Yeah.
And now it's very successful.
And a lot of the stuff that we talked about nurturing, following up, I do that through opportunities when I have somebody new that is interested, even if I don't have anything signed with them, but they're ready in 2 months or 6 months, I put them in an opportunity and I track them that, look at that every day. And that's the way I.
Those are- Oh, I didn't know if there's like formal apartments.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, that's it.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. All right. Everyone good?
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, of course.